following are events from Reddit. Events so scary you wish they were only in your nightmares. Viewer discretion is advised. I'm a retired homicide detective, and I think my wife is a serial killer.
I took advantage of my time alone and whipped out the old map that focused on the locations that each of the girls had last been seen in. Karen Whitaker had told her roommate that she was going to work, which happened to be a strip club down the street from where they lived. Karen had been known to walk to work, it was so close. Her abductor could have easily learned the typical path she took to get to work. Julia Voss had been on a date with her boyfriend the night she went missing. We had interrogated him pretty harshly, but it was evident that the guy wasn't to blame. Julia, too, had been out alone late at night, possibly doing some last-minute shopping before being offered a ride by the abductor. Jamie Calloway had actually vanished in broad daylight, having last been seen at her community college. Nee Justice, whose mandible had been found in a field later on, had been taken after a friend's birthday party. Felicia Smith had gotten into an argument with a friend at a bonfire and stormed off drunk, never to be seen again. Sweet Patricia, my sugar pie, had last been seen by, well, according to the investigation, her mother Amber, who she had visited on the fateful evening. That brought me to the two new girls. The abductor had taken Denise Lawsonis. Again, she walked home from work, and I didn't know all the details about Tatiana Graves yet, but apparently she had had drinks with my wife on the night that she disappeared. I studied the map intently and, with my family in mind, made a discovery that had flown right over my head before. The strip club, restaurant, community college, apartment the party had taken place outside of the bonfire, and the bar had each been within 5 miles of the school that Raven taught at. 3 of the 8 girls had graduated from that same school. At least 2 of them had unsavory reputations. Karen, the stripper, and Tatiana, who had apparently been getting around. The only other thing all these girls had in common was their remarkable resemblance to each other. Whoever the abductor had been, he was either incredibly persuasive or didn't work alone. It was, however, unlikely that these girls would take rides offered to them by strange men. A woman, however, would seem more friendly and trustworthy, especially if she happened to be a well-known local teacher. I took a swig of the bourbon that I had retrieved from my hidden stash. I had been sober for about 8 years now, or at least that's what my wife thought. I took 2 more big gulps before sitting back, staring at the map of the city before me. I found myself thinking about Hunter's diary, the word that he had scribbled. Hunter had been attending the high school that his mother taught at 10 years ago. He was a junior when Patricia had first gone missing, and there was no way he knew that name. No way anyone should have known that name. There was the incident in the woods with the gunshot that had nearly caused me to break my neck. Why hadn't he just straight up shot me, you say? Well, it's easier to explain away an accident than it is 2 members of your family going missing, especially with one of them being your father. Hunter would know that Eric and the force would be all over him if he had been foolish enough to try to get rid of me. He had seen me climbing the ladder to get to the treehouse, but when had the fire been started? Had Raven set the treehouse ablaze just before I arrived back home? Had Hunter tipped her off? Or did she just suspect that I had gotten hurt climbing the old ladder? The ladder which had been left lying on the ground after I had fallen. I took another swig and grimaced. Speaking of the ladder, there was no way in hell anyone would have been able to haul a dead body up it. The victim, most likely Denise Lawson, would have been taken to the treehouse alive, perhaps ordered by gunpoint to climb up the ladder and into it. For what reason? I found myself thinking of the teeth and felt sick. The abductor was likely torturing these girls brutally before slaying them. Eric had only recovered 1 corpse from the burnt treehouse, but the other girls had been dead for a decade now. Their murderer could have easily dispatched their bones by now. And then there was the black trash bag. The back door creaked. Pa, hey, it's me and Elle. We came to keep you some company. I didn't respond. I had come to my conclusion. The diary, the MO, it all made sense now. I had been suspecting Raven, but no, this all came down to one person, my son. He was the one who had taken my sugar pie away from me. Hunter Hunter's head popped around the doorway. I brought crab legs in. He trailed off, his eyes going from the map to the bottle of whiskey. Pa, I thought you quit drinking a long time ago. My eyes were watering. Hunt, how about me and you go for a walk? I need to talk to you about something. I could hear Ellie making Gabriel laugh in the living room. Hunter looked worried, but he shrugged. Okay, Pa. I looked him over and took note that he wasn't carrying his gun. Good. I took one more drink from the bottle before standing up and walking up to him. I clapped him lovingly on the back of his neck and rubbed his back. I led him to the back door and Ellie looked up from playing with Gabriel. Everything okay? Yeah, Ellie, we'll be back, I replied, and shut the door behind me. There was a light snow falling and the air was crisp. The tension between my son and I was clear, and not even the presence of Mr. Morris, trotting along ahead of us, was enough to soothe either of us. We walked in silence for a bit, eventually coming to the police markers that prohibited us from moving any further. No one was out here, however, so we trotted on. After a few more painful minutes, Hunter finally gathered the courage to speak. You okay, Paro? Yeah, I'm just fine, son. Good land we got. Your mother and I moved out here about 30 years ago. If anything, this place was a bargain. I love her just as much as I did back then. There's nothing I wouldn't do for her, or for you. You know that, right? Hunter was staring down at the snow as we crunched through it. Of course. Pa, what are you getting at? You want to tell me something? The SOB, he had the audacity. No, Hunt, I think it's you who has something to say. Speak up now, boy. I had my hand on my pistol now. Hunter saw this and came to a stop, his brown eyes wide and bewildered, his breath rising up in front of him. Pa, I don't know what you're talking about. What the hell is going on right now? My cell phone began to ring. I answered it without taking my eyes off of Hunter. This is Dario. Hey. Dario, Eric, I wanted to give you a heads up, a friend to a friend. Please don't make me regret it. I have 3 squad cars en route to your house. In addition to the remains in the treehouse, we retrieved a mutilated corpse in a trash bag from the pond. It was Tatiana. Dario, we're gonna have to bring you all in. Raven, Hunt, Ellie, I know you're the one who kickstarted the investigation, but you have to come too. You know the protocol. Thanks, Eric, but come fast. I suspect my son may attempt to kill me in the next few minutes. What? I hung up. Hunter had turned as white as the snow around him now. Pa, why did you say that? I shrugged. It was strategic. This way, I can claim self-defense when the judge asks why I shot you. Mr. Morris sat watching us from a few feet away, his head tilted. Pa, what the fuck are you talking about? Why would you shoot me? This is crazy. Let's just go back to the how. I won't have to shoot you as long as you admit to it. Even though I want to, I won't do it, even after what you did to her. Hunter was shaking, though whether it was from the cold or absolute fear I did not know. Jehu, I saw your diary. Hunt, sugar pie. Hunter's shock shone through clear as day on his face. He clenched his fists. Pa, don't lie to me. Hunter, you know. Hunter glanced down at the ground, his own eyes tearing up now. Of course I do. Pa, I would wake up from the damp creak of the back door every time. He looked me in the eyes. You would wait until Mom was off visiting Grandma, or with her friends, or working that second job she had at the time on the weekend. I could have forgiven you for it if it had been a random whore off the street, or if it had been a different woman each time. It could have been any woman in the world, but you chose Patricia, your wife's niece. My grip tightened on my pistol, still in the holster. Watch your tone with me. Boy, I've already told you I can shoot you at any moment. I didn't choose Patricia. We found each other. She had been down in the dumps. She had even considered taking her own life. Your mother herself was withdrawing from me. I don't know if it was the long hours on the job, or her coping with her father's death, but I was lonely. Patricia reached out to me. I believe we saved each other. Hunter looked repulsed. I don't want to hear it. I heard enough of it back then. The bed slamming against the wall. You calling her that disgusting name. Did you really think I wouldn't hear you? It's a wonder Mom never walked in on you. Don't detract. Hunt, whatever you thought of Patricia, you did not need to kill her, nor any of those other girls. Mr. Morris let out a long, low howl of discomfort. Hunter looked incredulous. Is that what this is about? Pa, I love you, but I never forgave you. I will never forgive you for what you did to Patricia and to Ma about murder. Who the fuck do you think I am? I whipped my gun out of the holster. Don't lie to me. The teeth. The diary. What teeth? And despite what I saw, I never wrote about you and her. Hearing it was bad enough. Why would I put it into words? I heard Raven's voice far off in the distance. Dario? Dario, what are you doing? Her yelling made me momentarily spin around. That gave Hunter enough time to charge me. He tackled me and we both went down to the ground. He was bigger and stronger than me, and I was fighting with one arm, but I was possessed with a fury greater than any in hell. My own son had been the one who had taken her life, and the lives of the other girls, simply because they resembled her, and all while living under my roof. He was truly a psychopath. My burning desire for justice kept my grip tight on the clock, but Hunter was persistent. Mr. Morris was going crazy, as was my wife, who was running over towards us. Then the gun went off. Hunter was still on top of me. His eyes widened, as did mine. I could feel a heavy, warm wetness down around my midsection. Hunter stared at me in shock, then muttered, "Pa." He toppled over off of me as his mother screamed. I pushed myself up, looking at the gunshot wound in my son's gut. Despite everything, the sight of my baby boy bleeding out rendered me speechless. I looked at my gun in absolute disgust and hurled it across the way. I then pushed my hand down on the wound, applying pressure. "Hunter, son, I'm so sorry." Raven finally made it over to us and fell to her knees beside our boy as well. Hunter was bleeding from his mouth now too. He looked up at us, gave a shudder, and then he was gone. Mr. Morris continued barking, and Raven and I remained there with our son until Barry and the other officers arrived. Next came a long interviewing process. I told Eric that Hunter had began watching me after I discovered the first corpse in the treehouse. I told him about the teeth, the diary, and the photo album. When asked why he may have wanted to kill his own cousin 10 years previously, I must admit, I am a coward and I didn't own up to my own sins. I didn't tell him that I had had an affair with Patricia. My wife had just lost her son. Why would I lay that heavy burden on her now? I instead told Eric that Hunter may have been jealous of the attention that I showered on his cousin, making him ride the bus to school while I hadn't hesitated in helping her buy a car, and so forth. Eric expressed his sorrows for the devastating loss that my family had just suffered, our second in 10 years. When Raven, Ellie and I left the station, we were all numb. Raven offered to spend the night at a hotel with Ellie, who wasn't ready to go back to the house. Gabriel had been left to spend the night with Ellie's mother. I didn't want to leave Mr. Morris alone, so I told them I would be going back to the house, to sit and prepare for the ramifications of the day's events. Ellie went up to the hotel room, but Raven stayed with me at the truck. "Dario, I don't know what to say. I don't blame you. If what you say is true, then Hunter, oh, I wish he was still here, but you had to defend yourself. Don't talk about it, and I know it'll be hard, but try not to think about it either. We'll be okay. It's going to be rough for the next few months, but we'll make it. Don't love our son any less than you did before. Nobody is perfect." Raven met my eyes and gave me a sad smile. I love you. We kissed and she stepped back, looking down at the ground. The snow drifted softly around her. "All right, drive carefully. I'll see you tomorrow, sugar pie." She turned to walk away and I stared dumbly at the back of her head. "Wait, honey, what was that?" Raven stopped and turned back. "Oh," I said, "I'll see you tomorrow." We stared at each other for a few seconds, and then she turned and walked away. I sat there in the truck for a long time after that. The world is truly a fucked up place.